Rai, thanks for joining us today. I want to start and talk about how you are reflecting on the anniversary of the release of the 94 calls to action.
Well, for me personally, it's definitely a moment for pause and reflection. Time does fly, and 5 years seems at once but a blink of an eye, and also a very long road that we've covered since the release of the TRC's calls to action.
Earlier this year, as actions were taking place from coast to coast in support of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs, people were declaring reconciliation is dead. Do you believe this is the case?
Well, I think for some people it certainly did suffer a major blow or a major setback, and I think we always have to recognize that there's many voices involved in this conversation of reconciliation, and many people have many different understandings in terms of what it means to them. So I think there was a very significant impact that those protests had on Canada. That said, I think that reconciliation is still very much alive and well in this country, because there's an incredible amount of activity happening from coast to coast to coast in the area of cultural resurgence, revitalization, language revitalization, reclamation. People learning their songs, their dances, their traditions. All of that is very, very much part of reconciliation, and that thankfully is alive and well and growing with ever increasing force across the country.
Do you think has enough progress been made on the calls to action in the past 5 years?
Yeah, this is one of the questions that we get asked so frequently, and I think it's very unequal. On some of the calls to action, I think we're seeing quite a bit of progress. I think in the areas of education, we're doing pretty well. I think people like Cindy Blackstock, would say that the current state of child welfare in this country remains abysmal, and there's a huge amount of work that has to happen. There's major calls to action that have not been implemented either. The fact that you're even asking me this question is a symbol that the National Council for Reconciliation has not been established. And this is a critically important call to action that is intended to monitor, to track progress of implementation, to establish multi-year plans for reconciliation. You know, there's money set aside, there's been a report that's been released, but we're not seeing a lot of substantive progress on that call to action. And that has been widely regarded by many in this work as being one of the most important, if not the most important, of the calls to action.
There's currently a legal battle going on over the fate of residential school historical records. What can you tell us about that?
Well, this is where we get into the current status of the state is such that, the truth part of truth and reconciliation is oftentimes the most difficult area of the work that we do. The NCTR has been fighting very hard for a very long period of time, picking up the battles that were started by the TRC to protect and preserve residential schools history. We've carried that torch forward. It has not always been easy. We remain in court. We've recently appealed a decision related to what we feel is very, very important information related to the harms inflicted upon communities and individuals in the residential schools. That information right now is not slated to be preserved. It's slated to be destroyed along with other residential school records. Those that are advising us at the NCTR are, our elders, our survivors circle, governing circle members, are really concerned that when we, destroy some of this information, we lose a great deal of insight into the harm that has been intentionally inflicted upon communities and individuals. And it's that harm that we have to remember, because we know that there's already been lots of efforts to deny that the residential schools even occurred, or that they were as bad as people say they were. And that's only going to continue over time. So preserving the historical record is fundamental. It was always a core part of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's mandate, and we continue to fight that fight every single day.
Well, thanks again, Rai. I want to thank you again for joining us here as we take a look back on the 5th anniversary.
Thanks for having me on.